The nation's second largest city and the world's fourth largest economy are on the verge of making major political decisions. And what happens there, what happens in California, I believe could have a huge impact on the rest of the country. Because you have to imagine political strategists across the country are paying very careful attention to what happens tonight. Not only are there issues of public safety and affordability and housing and quality of life all on the table, but given the unusual dynamics of these races and who is taking center stage, the voting results could have an effect on statewide and national campaigns. What do the LA and governor races out of California tell us about the political mood of the country? Are voters prioritizing certain issues? Could the results offer an early glimpse into the strategies that both parties may embrace when they head into the midterm elections? So I want to bring in somebody who knows better than most people what it's like leading one of the country's economic and cultural engines, the former mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio. Good to see you again, sir. Thanks for taking the time. Big night. Last time you were here, you were emphatic that Spencer Pratt would not be the next mayor of LA. Do you still believe that? A lot has changed since then.
I'm still emphatic, Jesse. Look, I give Spencer Pratt and his campaign credit for some very clever AI-generated ads. They're outrageous. They're inappropriate in some ways.
By the way, he didn't even take full credit for them. He just shared them, he said.
Yeah, look, I don't know who's behind them. And some of the underlying messages are really inappropriate and divisive, but no one can deny they're clever, they get attention, and they tap into frustrations that people feel. But that's a very different issue than whether you can put together enough votes to get to the next round, and even more, can you get enough votes to win a majority in a progressive and democratic city like Los Angeles? I mean, Spencer Pratt, what he has said in this campaign, what he said in the past, it's going to come back to haunt him. He also has no legitimate experience to govern a city. And I tell you something, voters are more discerning than they're given credit for. People can actually tell the difference between someone who just talks a lot versus someone who actually knows how to govern.
But you also know that sometimes experience and a role in government don't always lead to success, and sometimes it's an outsider. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but there has to be a lesson that's taken away from this, other than maybe campaigns have to resort to move more forward with, I don't know, AI-generated materials or social media. He's really sparked something. There is a frustration. You mentioned it. And whether it's homelessness or public safety or housing costs, what is the lesson that's going to come out of this? Because you look at him in the polls, and whether he advances or not, I feel like there is a takeaway here, no?
Yeah, Jesse, I agree. Look, if we're talking about facts, if we're talking about substance, Karen Bass deserves a lot of credit. Crime is way down in LA, down to levels you haven't seen since the early 1990s. Homelessness is down. She's actually done a lot of great work. That doesn't mean the message is getting through yet. And I think in a runoff, she has to really project much more clearly a populist message of change, because she's been making change. I think the bottom line to your question is—
Are people feeling that, though? Are people feeling that, though?
I don't know if they are, honestly, but I think it gets to your point. The candidates who are succeeding are the ones who are tapping into the legitimate anger that people feel. Most Americans feel economically they're stuck. Inflation's been horrible. They don't feel particularly very hopeful for the next generation. And honestly, that should be a strong suit for Democrats all over the country to embrace that economic populism, to speak about how the wealthy are getting away with a lot, not paying their fair share in taxes, how we have to do something very different to get people affordable housing and health care. Those are long-term, historic Democratic positions. What we need is candidates who will express them in a populist manner. And I think what we see here is, on the work, Bass has done some really extraordinary things. She has a chance, and I think she will make the runoff, to express that in a way that can reach people better. But I think that the reality of Pratt is, don't mistake clever advertisements for a message or a body of work that's actually going to get people to want someone to be their mayor.
You know, you would agree, people have moved out of California recently, some high-profile people. They ended up in Florida, they ended up in Texas. They could be, citing ideology, they could say affordability, so high taxes. When you talk about that, those feel like issues that can't be ignored, and it does raise a question. Is this, when you look at big cities like Los Angeles or New York, how much is it the blame for management versus it's very hard to equate that to other cities across the country. But again, you are seeing turnover. You are seeing people leaving.
Yeah, you are. You're also seeing a lot of people come in, and a lot of people, as in the case of New York, I can say we're producing more millionaires all the time. So it's not just about rich people wanting to leave. I think the bottom line here is, yeah, of course, for some people it's taxes, for some people it's political differences. I am personally very disgusted at the folks in Silicon Valley who made their fortune in California. California gave them the talent and all the support to become ultra rich, and then they leave the minute they're asked to do their, to pay their fair share. That's not cool. But I think you're right to say all of these factors are affecting some people, including just ideology. Some folks who are less progressive are going to more conservative jurisdictions. That's normal enough. And I think you've seen vice versa with that, too. But the bottom line here is, and this is really where Democrats have to pay attention, Jesse, the American people do not like the status quo. Donald Trump in 2024 spoke effectively against the status quo. Now that's come back to bite him. Look at the poll numbers in this latest New York Times Siena poll. He's down to, I think, 37% approval. Trump is vulnerable. Republicans are vulnerable. The Democrats, if they embrace that populist economic message, take the anger and the frustration that Spencer Pratt is keying into, but actually talk about policies that are going to change things and reach people, this could be an incredible year for Democrats.
Let me push back on that a little bit, because you're seeing some of the Trump-backed candidates having success. I mean, even if you look at what happened with Massey, and then look at Hilton. I mean, let's just focus on that for a second, the governor's race in California, which I find fascinating. I mean, to see Hilton in California, a blue state like that, getting those numbers is something we haven't seen, again, I don't believe, in almost like 20 years. What do you take away from that? I mean, that's significant.
It's meaningful, but Jesse, I wouldn't overrate it. First of all, when you mentioned Massey and the other Republican primaries, that's inside the Republican Party, where Trump obviously has immense popularity. That doesn't reflect where the bigger electorate is at. Trump is losing the overall electorate. He's losing independence in a very big way in this country. If you're talking about the situation in California, look, it's a huge field of candidates. Therefore, a one Republican standing out with Trump's support is going to represent the kind of support Republicans have in California. I think they have 25 or 30% in California. They don't have enough to win in California. Maybe one of them gets to the runoff, but Republican's not going to be governor of California. That's a clear never, especially after some of what Trump did, sending in the National Guard to LA and other things that really hurt California. So I think we should not mistake the fact that one Republican candidate's been able to consolidate that block for his overall viability in November.
And if you're wrong on either the mayor's race or the governor's race, you're going to come back on. We're going to talk about it, right? You agree?
I'm ready, brother.
Okay,
I'll take that bet.
All right, good.
I'll take that bet.
All right, Bill de Blasio, thank you so much, sir. Appreciate you making the time.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.